Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the live. Welcome to the live once again. I'm very late. Just gonna say that. Thank you for your patience, whoever's listening. That thing I was talking about with time management? Yeah, I think I still got a little bit of work to do, but we're gonna make it happen. Today's live is going to be about forgiveness. As you guys know, this has been on the list since last week to talk about. I know some of you were asking questions about forgiveness. Maybe I'm just here to share a little bit about why I decided to make this a practice in my life, why it's so important, why it matters so much to me. And like I said in one of my stories, I think it's an area that can hold a lot of us back if we're not mindful, if we're not being intentional about how we do things. Hey Vish, how's it going? Good to see you. So I wanted to start off with just defining what is forgiveness. I'm big on clarity. I'm big on, kind of being on the same page when we are talking about things, when we're communicating with one another. Sometimes you can communicate about the same topic, but you mean totally different things. So that's why I wanted to look up the definition of what is actual forgiveness. What does it mean to forgive? And I'm going to write down what I found kind of as a general. Some of them were a little bit different. Most of them were similar. But I really love this definition. So I'm just going to read out what it says. So forgiveness is a conscious, deliberate decision to release feelings of resentment or vengeance towards a person or group who has harmed you, regardless of whether they actually deserve your forgiveness. And I really love this definition because there's a few key points or a few key words in here that resonate really strongly with me, especially with how I've been doing my forgiveness journey, my forgiveness walk, and what it's looked like for me. The first one is it's a conscious and deliberate decision. Forgiveness doesn't just happen. Forgiveness, doesn't just, it doesn't just happen. It's not a passive process. It's not something that you just stumble into. It's not something that you just hope happens. Like, I hope I can forgive this person one day. I'm like, it's a choice. It's got to be a conscious, deliberate choice, or it's not going to happen. So that was the first key thing that really stood out to me and that resonated with me in my own forgiveness journey. The second one was feelings of resentment or anger. It didn't say anger, but anger is one of the emotions that I feel when I know I have to forgive someone. And at the end of the day, these feelings are just feelings, yes, but they're also indicators. So usually when we have our emotions stirred up, something is happening. Hey Steph, something has gone wrong. That's usually an indicator that, okay, there is some resentment here, or perhaps there is a grudge, perhaps there is, a tension, perhaps something has gone wrong, but it will usually bring up feelings of resentment or anger. And I'm going to bring that back up later when I talk about some of the, consequences, especially to our health when we don't forgive. And the third thing is regardless of whether they deserve it or not. I think that one is one of the hardest parts about forgiveness, is that we've all heard the cliche, forgiveness isn't for the other person, it's for you, right? Like, you don't forgive them so they can be absolved, you forgive them so you can have peace. And that is true, but it doesn't mean it's any easier. So when I read that line, regardless of whether they deserve it, it even made me a little ugh. Because we all know we would rather hold grudges than forgive people who have harmed us, because we're like, they don't deserve my forgiveness. Whether they deserve it, I'm like, they don't deserve nothing. They don't deserve compassion. They don't deserve my grace. They don't deserve my understanding. When you're in that place of resentment or anger, you do not want to give any of that to someone who's harmed you. So that part especially, I think, is one of the biggest reasons why it is hard for us to give forgiveness, why it's hard for us to forgive others. So with that definition in mind, and just kind of dissecting that a little bit, I wanted to talk about the value of forgiveness, especially when it comes to relationships. There's many other areas that you can talk about the value, but I'm going to focus on relationships because I truly believe I truly, truly believe true wealth and the currency of tomorrow, the currency even of today, is not monetary, it's relational. True wealth comes in the depth, the quality, and the perhaps intimacy, perhaps authenticity of the connections and the relationships we build with others. And the truth of the matter is, you are going to have to forgive every single person that you have a relationship with. You know, when I think about some of the best relationships in my life, there are people who I have had to forgive, whether they know it or not. That's the thing. Like I said, forgiving is not for them, it's for me. So there's some people who I'm very close to today that I have had to forgive in my heart. And I don't necessarily tell them, but it's just something that I do for myself and something that I have to process. It's a me thing, right? So when I'm talking about forgiveness and relationships, the reason why I said that this is an area that holds a lot of us back. Oh yes, I'm glad the timing is on point. I really felt like someone needed to hear this, or that, you know, people were asking questions, so I'm glad it's resonating. But when it comes to, like I said, it holds many of us back. Because when I found in my life, the opportunities that have come into my life, the joy, you know, just the moments that I don't forget, like I will never forget, and give me so much joy, perhaps so much pain too, but just the depths of what I feel like this human experience is all about. It's always through relationships. It's always with connecting with someone, having a deep conversation, experiencing a moment with somebody. I'm like tucking my hair back, but I don't have any hair. It's such a habit for me to do that. All those things come through the relationships I have with others. Now that is maybe the life stuff about it, but even if we want to talk about opportunities, business, jobs, economics, like economic opportunities, we've all heard the saying, your network is your net worth, right? In any arena, I don't care if it's business, if it's personal, family, friends, your coworker, if you can't learn to forgive, and you know, whether people deserve it, if you can't learn to forgive and let go of those feelings of resentment, you are going to fester. Your behavior is going to change. You're going to become someone who's grouchy. And what I've found is when I don't forgive, I'm two different people. So in one arena, I can be this loving, kind, joyous person, but as soon as that person comes into this, you know, into interaction with me, I flip a switch. I'm like, I have an attitude, I'm sassy, I'm tense, you know, I'm not as friendly. So who am I really in that moment, right? I'm both of those things, but it doesn't feel good to have two different personalities going on here. To know that I'm not really this person who is mean or who is malicious or wants the worst for people, but because I'm choosing to hold on to some form of grudge, some form of resentment, I'm letting it embitter my heart. I'm letting it make me bitter. I'm letting it make me sour. And that is not something you can hide. I believe that whatever is in your heart is going to come out. So with that in mind, how do you build strong, authentic, loving relationships when you are not the same person in every relationship? And yes, given you are not you're not the same person with your girlfriend as you are with your parents, but is your heart the same? You know, do you still love people the same? Do you still have grace for people the same? Do you still believe in people the same? I think that can be a consistent aspect of who we are that doesn't need to change, but it will if we hold on to these things, if we let the baggage weigh us down, if we let those things weigh us down. Hey, Christy, how's it going? So yeah, that's why I really wanted to talk about this in terms of relationships, because that is where it comes out, right? Like, obviously, we're only forgiving when it comes to relationships. Maybe we have to forgive circumstance, but actions are always perpetuated by people, right? So if we're not able to do that, I always say we live in a planet with 8 billion other roommates. That's kind of how I see it. This is a planet with 8 billion other roommates. We're all living under this house together. So if we can't learn to forgive, oh lordy, this is going to be such an awful experience, because there's a lot of roommates, there's a lot of people. There is tens of thousands of people on a single day, perhaps a year, your whole lifetime, who will trigger you, who will like make you cry, who will make you feel dumb, who will whatever. You know, they're just dealing with something, but they take it out on you. But then you take that and you carry it with you when you could have just let it go. When you could have just been like, I'm gonna just leave this here. No, thank you. Goodbye. So that's why I want to talk about the value of forgiveness in relationships. Now, some of the last things that I want to talk about is, you know, when I looked up the health and maybe like the actual physical ramifications of not forgiving, it shocked me. Because we don't realize that when we have these emotional hang-ups and baggages, it actually comes out in our physical states. So I wanted to maybe talk about that a little bit. For those of you who are maybe more scientific or kind of consider the health benefits or consequences of something, I think we cannot underestimate that our emotional self, our emotional body, if that's how you want to call it, however you need to conceptualize it, it does affect our physical body as well. And you can look this up. I'm not making any of this up, so I encourage you to do research as well. Look up the health consequences of unforgiveness. It will shock you. But some things that I'm just going to read out here and then talk about a little bit. But basically, unforgiveness increases your stress levels and your muscle tension. So you hold tension within your body. Unforgiveness increases your blood pressure, and your heart rate. High blood pressure is not good, right? Unforgiveness suppresses your immune system. Because you're dealing with so much stress, your immune system can actually keep you healthy, like it struggles to keep you healthy. It also impairs your neurological function and memory. Now this I can believe, when you are so wrapped up in anger, you don't really have capacity for much else. And it can also increase your risk of depression, heart disease, or cancer. Now that, for me, when I read that, I was like, wow, that's pretty out there to say that unforgiveness causes even cancer, even stroke. But when we think about how stress develops in our physical body, how over time it can cause tension, how it even can affect how we eat, it can affect how we move, it can affect what we listen to. It's like a pressure cooker, right? It builds and builds and builds and builds until it just explodes. That's how stress kind of accumulates in our body. And holding on to this emotional baggage is part of that stress that we are holding on to. Now, I wanted to talk about the health benefits of forgiveness, to go on the other side, just for us to realize, like, there's so many great results that can come when we are willing to forgive. Even though it's hard, this is some of the results that we can see even in our physical body. Not just emotional, not just mental, but in our physical body. So forgiveness improves heart health. Your heart isn't under stress, of course. It improves mental health. Obviously, you're not kind of weighed down. You're less anxious and stressed and less hostile. As I was saying, unforgiveness creates hostility and animosity. It makes our heart bitter. So when you learn to forgive, you're less hostile. You're going to be less, kind of like no one wants to be around you because you're always saying really rude, mean things because you are holding a grudge for your coworker who stole your lunch a month ago, right? Like some of those silly things that we like hold on to. You have healthier relationships. And as I said, relationships are true wealth. Relationships are truly the true wealth in this lifetime. Who cares what you have, material, you have a good looking body, you won this award, won that, if you can't celebrate it with others. So forgiveness allows us to have healthier relationships and better communication in those relationships as well, if we share. It improves your self-esteem because you're not hiding. I know for me, it's like I try to hide that I'm mad at somebody so that I'm like, it just messes with your mental and emotional state. It lowers your blood pressure, so you don't have as high blood pressure when you forgive because you're not holding on to so much tension. So that's some of the consequences and benefits of forgiveness that I really wanted to share, because I know for some of us it's like, yeah, I know I should forgive, But it's not until it builds up in our body and it like really smacks us in the face that it clicks, that we're like, oh, this is actually not good for me. Now, the last thing I wanted to leave you with, if you're still listening, thank you so much. I do appreciate you. The last thing is one thing you need in order to forgive. Now, this is just my opinion, but I truly believe without this, like, this is part of the process of forgiving, and it's what has helped me undergo this transformation to being a forgiving person. And that is compassion/empathy, or empathy. Those are two things, but they're kind of interchangeable. Without empathy, you're not going to be able to forgive. Because for me, part of the process of forgiving is putting yourself in that person's shoes and saying, what on earth would make a person act like this? Like, what on earth would make a person act like this? That's how I say it too, right? You're like, we're trying to be empathetic. So we're like, what in the hell? Why would this person do this to me? What is wrong with them? But that empathy allows us to see things from their point of view. And every time I ask myself, okay, this person did this person did that, but why? Why would they do that? Let me try and be a little bit compassionate here. Understanding where they're coming from, when I think about their background, their life experience, maybe what they're going through right now, if I were in their shoes, would I act any differently? Now, we'd all like to say yes. Like, yeah, I'm not gonna treat someone like that. But when I think about it, at the end of the day, I'm like, I probably would act the same. And I probably have acted the same. That's one of those humbling moments where I go, I've probably done the same thing at some point, and that person either has chosen to forgive me or they have held resentment for me. So who am I to judge? But I think without compassion, we're never going to be able to forgive, because we'll never understand that this person who is sitting across from me, that I'm visualizing, is also human, who's imperfect, and it doesn't excuse their behavior, but at least it gives me a greater perspective to say, okay, you know what? I can forgive the sinner and hate the sin, right? And that's really how I'm going to move forward with this, is say, you're human, I hate what you did, maybe I'm going to set better boundaries, maybe you're going to be cut out of my life, but I'm not going to hold it against you, because I understand, and I'm choosing to forgive you, even though you don't friggin' deserve it. So that's all I needed and wanted to say about forgiveness. Just some bullet points, really. This is such a big topic. There's so much to talk about. And sometimes maybe forgiveness is such a circumstantial thing, right? Not every circumstance is the same. Not every interaction or dynamic is the same. But I think all of us need to forgive. All of us here living on this planet with each other, this needs to be a practice that we should decide to engage in, because like I said, you can't go in this life without having some form of relationships, without needing to interact with some people, and along the way there are going to be some people who hurt you, because hurt people hurt people. I've been hurt, I hurt people. I'm sure even today, even though I try to be as loving and as authentic and as considerate as I can be, my actions probably still hurt people. And that probably doesn't have anything to do with me. It's someone else's perception, but hey, it still happens. It still happens to me too, right? And that's why I choose to forgive. That's why I undertake this process of saying, I'm going to seek to understand. I'm going to have some compassion. I'm going to, try to forgive you. And I'm going to do it even though you don't deserve it. Because ultimately, I want to give myself peace. And I want to let go of this baggage, because I don't want anything to weigh me down in this life. I don't want the baggage of this life to not make me excited, to not make me grateful to be here. Like, all this baggage over time, it adds up, it accumulates, and that's why we get to maybe a certain age, a certain season, the end of our life, and we have just been so bitter and so clouded by anger and resentment and all these unnecessary things. Life is just too beautiful, and it is just too precious to live with any of that. So, a little poignant at the end there, but I really hope the message sticks. I really hope you make this part of your practice. For me, it's a daily, weekly thing. Maybe for you, it's a monthly, quarterly thing. I don't know, whatever works. But just know, there is probably someone you need to forgive. There's probably someone I need to forgive. Maybe it's myself. So that's why I just ask myself all the time, who do I need to forgive today? And if it is me, then even better, because it means I can look myself in the mirror and say, okay, Jean, you cray, but I forgive you, girl. So I hope that adds value. I hope you get something out of that. Take some notes, reflect, journal, send me a message if you need to. And yeah, that's all I had to say. Ciao. See you next time.